Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and this week I'm looking at the action-adventure game Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, released by Naughty Dog in 2009. Uncharted 2 is a game that needs no introduction. Featuring the same director and writers from the first game, with the addition of Bruce Straley as a director, his first time doing so, and a host of new gameplay and graphics upgrades thanks to the Naughty Engine 2.0, Uncharted 2 won many Game of the Year awards in 2009 and is often regarded as one of the greatest games ever made. Though Batman Arkham Asylum is clearly the best game of 2009. With the trailer showing Nathan Drake taking some time off to chill in the Nolan North, let's pick up with the Dude Raider 2 years later and see what we discover. And, as always, give it everything we've got! The game begins with a quote, a much more succinct one. I guess you don't have time for verbosity on your deathbed. Marco Polo certainly didn't. Marco Polo is a name everyone knows, though the man himself is most famous for being the first European to write down his experiences in China in detail. It was him who helped the West discover things like coal, gunpowder, and paper money. He also inspired Christopher Columbus. Hey, with those things you discovered, you better watch out, Marco, they'll come after you next. And yes, despite the main character being a descendant of Sir Francis Drake, supposedly, they've already abandoned him for another explorer 2 games in. But don't worry, this isn't the last of El Drake. We reunite with adventurer Nathan Drake, who isn't in the best shape. But don't worry, his observational skills are still intact.
That's my blood.
But this isn't any normal train, it's a vertical train, whoa. Nate has to scale this vertitrain. Good thing he has all that training. See what I meant last week about them playing with the exploration sections in future installments? This game's been going for like 3 minutes and this is already better than any exploration in the first game. Nate makes it up to the horizon train and manages to make it back to solid ground, and promptly pass the fuck out. The game flashes back to where Nate probably wishes he still was. He's approached by Harry Flynn, an old friend of Nate's who wants his help breaking into an old museum in Istanbul for a client. Nate says it's a dangerous job that requires at least 3 people, which activates Chloe Fraser's perfect timing card that seemingly every fictional character has. Chloe is Harry's girlfriend, which clearly doesn't matter to Nate as he's so busy picking his jaw up off the floor that he completely messes up his James Bond impression.
Nathan Drake.
Harry and Chloe explain that their client is after a Mongolian oil lamp, which Nate deduces hides some clue towards the location of Marco Polo's lost fleet of ships from a voyage in 1292. He left with 14 ships filled with treasure and arrived 2 years later with only 1. The 3 of them agree to double-cross the client and steal the lamp for themselves. Then Nate says this.
I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
So it's his own damn fault that he's about to freeze to death in the middle of cold as fuck nowhere. Nate limps through the wreckage of the train crash and finds a, gun. Oh god, does this mean what I think it does? Luckily, no. Not yet anyway. Nate continues his exploration until an explosion rocks his socks back to the past. He is visited by Chloe and he really isn't happy about the whole dating Harry thing because Nate is a bad drama movie character in a 2000s action movie. See, Nate and Chloe used to be a thing and they still have a thing for each other. Can you tell? Chloe reveals that she plans on double-crossing Harry as well and running away with Nate, their share of Polo's fortune in tow, which Nate says will make Harry a grumpy bear. And if you can't tell how Nate ends up seconds away from becoming a Drixicle yet, you've clearly never seen a 2000s action movie before. I have to say though, I like the wrinkle this scene adds to the Nathan Drake character. He's not like Indiana Jones and James Bond. He doesn't have a girl in every port as Elena said last time. And really, that whole contrast is the heart of this game, as we'll see later. Speaking of hearts, Nate's currently inside the greatest episode of Batman the Animated Series as he's about to freeze to death, but it's fine because he finds a dagger. That'll solve all of his problems. We officially flash back to 4 months ago in Istanbul, where the necessity for stealth and speed won't stop Chloe from wearing a shirt that's too small and not wearing gloves because fashion triumphs efficiency in action movies. Chloe splits off from the group to disable the security, probably after buying new jeans or something given her character. There's a typo in the subtitles and Nate and Harry parkour their way through the amnesia sewers right into a large warehouse looking room and then a more fancy looking room. Speaking of fancy looking, there are treasures to collect in this game as well. 100 of them, in fact. 1 for every percentage point toward the unlikeliness of me going over all of their locations. Nate gets the 2 of them past an alarm by disabling it because putting the controls to your alarm in the same room as the alarm where any idiot could disable it is just good security. Their progress toward the courtyard is temporarily interrupted by a guard, but Nate takes them out with his stealthy ninja skills. Yeah, stealth takedowns are a thing in this game and were a thing in the first one, but you barely got to use them. There are more chances now, but most enemy encounters are scripted so they detect you immediately. Nate and Harry stealthily take down more guards as they progress toward their destination, but they are halted by 4 men who can't be taken down by stealth, leading to this conversation.
Oh, that's brilliant. Guns? What are you thinking?
Relax, Gandhi. They're tranquilizer guns, totally non-lethal. Your conscience will remain unscathed.
See what I meant about ludonarrative dissonance? This guy we've seen mercilessly mow down hundreds of men with ease suddenly has an aversion to shooting people. Now, yes, there's an argument to be made that all of the people from the first game were gang members and these people are just security guards. One of those guys he killed had to have a family, right? They tranquilize the guards and make their way up to the rooftops, bringing them closer to their target, the tower.
Appreciate that update, Captain Obvious.
I'm not here for your sass, Nate. In fact, I hope your ass falls now. One thing I have to point out is the small change to the platforming section. A lot of the things that Nate can jump to or climb up are colored yellow, making it a lot easier to tell what can be accessed and what can't, fixing a problem I had with the first one. Breaking into the tower and just plain breaking the oil lamp leads to the greatest discovery of Nathan Drake's life. An old-ass blank piece of paper. In reality, the message on the paper is exposed when held over the blue flame created by the resin within the lamp, which reveals that Marco Polo found the mythical city of Shambhala, the most likely inspiration for Shangri-La, in Borneo, an Asian island home to Indonesia, Brunei, and Malaysia, and his fleet was afflicted with something he called the Curse of the Chintamani. Now let me summarize what I would do upon hearing that there's a cursed thing seemingly capable of controlling the seas somewhere on Borneo.
I blew up Malaysia.
But since Nate didn't learn a single fucking thing from the first game, he still wants to track down the fleet and the Chintamani stone despite knowing full well in advance that it's cursed. For those who don't know, which I assume is most everybody, the Chintamani stone is a very prevalent jewel in Hinduism and Buddhism. It's capable of granting wishes and it's usually seen as the equivalent of the Philosopher's Stone or the Holy Grail. Upon discovering this, Harry betrays Nate because of course he fucking does, it's literally the name of the game. We fast forward 3 months because this game can't pick a time to stick with, where Nate is doing the classic repeating a past argument and using the comebacks you wished you'd used in the moment when he is rescued by Victor Sullivan. After 3 months. Better late than never, I guess. Sully brought Chloe with him, who Nate isn't exactly happy to see. She explains that Harry has been working with his client, Zoran Lazarevic, the whole time, and that she didn't know about it. What she does know, though, is that Harry and Lazarevic, that's not gonna get annoying to say, located the fleet of ships, but have not yet found the stone. Nate devises a plan to steal the stone right out from under them. After Nate has his first shower in 3 months, and probably his first bathroom break not in a bucket, the three of them devise a plan to have Chloe distract Lazarevic and his soldiers so Nate can sneak into his tent and look through his files. There's some humor that falls completely flat because Nate and Chloe occasionally have the same amount of chemistry as Barry and Iris, which is to say none at all, and they're off to Borneo. Chloe has planted bombs in the swamp near the camp and it's up to Nate and Sully to sneak through and activate them. And by sneak through, I mean loudly splash around and obliterate all the soldiers nearby. The characters say you have to be quiet, but there is no punishment for just gunning the enemies down. In fact, it's required, leading to our first real gunfight of the game. It's about an hour in and there aren't an insane amount of enemies. That's incredible restraint, game. I'm proud of you. There's also a brief section that's melee combat only, which is fun. Though remember, this game came out in 2009, so this melee combat had to compete with this. One more brief jog brings Nate and Sully to the camp, where we get our first look at Lazarevic, and man does he look like generic Russian bad guy 387. Let's see how he introduces himself.
I am surrounded by traitors and fools!
Since Nate and Sully don't take kindly to Lazarevic messing up a Spaceballs reference, they commit casual bombing, giving them access to Lazarevic's findings. Nate realizes that Marco Polo never took the Chintamani stone and that it's still in Shambhala. Lazarevic knows this too. He hasn't been searching for the stone, he's been searching for Shambhala by following Polo's trail. However, that doesn't explain the cursed cargo that he mentioned in his journal. Ooh, mystery. They decide to head towards the island's mountain, as people in a tsunami would head for higher ground, but Nate's exit is interrupted by more soldiers. Luckily, there's a steady supply of infinite grenades nearby, but we're back to annoyingly long gunfights with absurd amount of enemies. I knew it wouldn't last. After suffering through that, Chloe catches up with them outside the entrance to what Nate believes to be the final resting place for all of Marco Polo's missing crew. And it is! Which means that, on the third largest island in the world, Lazarevich unknowingly set up camp like 100 feet away from a major clue and never found it. It's not even hidden! Nate is keen to point out their black teeth, and like, it was the 1200s and they were at sea. Did you expect them to have the same health standards we do now? Not to mention the whole being dead for 800 years thing. Usually I wouldn't point out stuff like this unless it's important later. Nate finds more resin and a convenient torch, allowing for Sully to do the one thing he was useful for last game. The fire reveals a path of bloodstains and they decide to follow it. So you could say they... The trail brings them to a skeleton holding a box, and within that box is the dagger Nate had earlier, which is also later. This is a purba, despite the fact that the spelling clearly makes it look like furba. The purba was wrapped in another old-ass piece of paper. This one, for some reason, doesn't require blue fire. Strange, seeing as how it gives instructions to finding Shambhala, whereas the more secretive one only talked about it. What is it with these ancient explorers and separating their documents of legendary treasure from the documents about how no one should attempt to find it because it's cursed? Sully realizes the map is talking about Nepal and their weird flag, and that the purba is their ticket in. They just need to find the one temple that is mentioned in the note. See, this is the part I don't get. Nate only wanted to find the Chintamani stone so Harry and Lazarevich wouldn't get it. So all he has to do now is just fuck off back home with the note and the purba and no one would be able to find it. And that way, Nate also avoids having to deal with another curse. But this game has a runtime of about 6 hours, not 1, so the three of them decide to head off to Nepal with its weird flag. As they exit, Chloe runs off and alerts Harry and the soldiers of Nate's location. They corner them and Chloe gives the map to Harry because, again, name of the game, but a few moments later she beats up the soldiers and gives Nate the purba, telling them to meet her in Nepal. So why did she pretend to double-cross them? Harry didn't know they were there, and if she had just snuck out with them, he and Lazarevich wouldn't have a single clue about Nepal. How is this the 2009 Game of the Year? Anyway, Sully backs out of the mission so Nate heads to Nepal alone, which Chloe informs him is in the middle of civil war thanks to Lazarevich helping out the guerrillas. And you can really tell how chaotic it is as Nate drives through the almost entirely empty streets uninterrupted. Well, mostly uninterrupted. The vehicle manages to crash Nate's Jeep, but somehow Nate is able to run faster than it after just crashing and completely destroys the thing with a gun and a few bullets. Okay, game, getting some real Nuketown Fridge vibes. The soldiers in the truck go to find Nate, but Bus Ex Machina comes out of nowhere and provides the perfect distraction that allows Nate to take them out. I swear, like, every sentence I say makes it harder and harder to believe this game is regarded as the best game in the series, let alone best of 2009. Nate shrugs off an explosion right in his fucking face and begins climbing the buildings. Okay, yes, climbing, this game's strong suit. More of this, please. Nate doesn't comment on the Hotel El Dorado sign, which is disappointing, and climbs the remnants of a house just in time to see the most famous sexual identity. He drops into another gunfight, which is mercifully saved from being too long by Chloe and an RPG.
Oh, motherfucker, I was born ready!
There's some 2000s action movie dialogue and camera shots, including this!
Oh. Is that an ancient Tibetan ritual dagger in your pocket?
Oh, maybe I'm just happy to see you.
No! No! No!
They exchange information they both already know, and Nate just so happens to be standing in front of a massive clue that points him in the direction of the temple they need to find. They agree to find a higher vantage point and find the symbol that's engraved on the purba. They fight through the streets and...
Boy, it's a shame you have to sit on something that big.
That's a thing!
They cross through a building and have to pass through a group of enemies to continue. They have a long conversation that basically amounts to take out the RPG guy first and then shoot people, and that's exactly what happens because Nate and Chloe managed to do what an entire army of resistance fighters can't. They make their way into a building that probably looked really nice before the whole Civil War thing happened. Speaking of which, how did this much damage happen already? Nate mentions that Lazarevich had a head start. I have no idea how an entire army was able to mobilize faster than one man, but they specifically say that the war didn't start until Lazarevich arrived and helped out one of the sides. How long did Nate wait before getting to Nepal? Speaking of waiting, that's exactly what Chloe has to do when a generator is hit and she's stuck in an elevator. Thank God I get some time away from her and their awful banter.
Great. Power's out and a girl's trapped. I swear to God, if there's a zombie around the next corner.
Oh, so you referenced that, but not a peep about Hotel El Dorado. Nate crosses some flagpoles that allows a glimpse at Nepal's weird flag and fights his way to the fuse box where he frees Chloe. They ascend to the roof where we learn that this is Hotel Shangri-La because of course it fucking is. All we need is a Hotel Ubar and a Hotel Libertalia and we run the table. They find the temple they need to go to, and guess what? It's right where Lazarevich is camped! Jesus Christ, we're just running in circles! How is it that this man has managed to set up camp right on top of the thing he's looking for and failed to find it twice? And it's not like he knows it's there. They specifically say he's been tearing down all the temples looking for it. Nate gets spotted, so he and Chloe have to fight their way back to the streets, all while being hunted by a helicopter that makes stormtroopers look like Deadshot. This leads to a boss fight against the helicopter, where Nathan Drake once again destroys an armored military vehicle all by himself, but at least it's not with a normal gun this time. They escape, and Nate just walks off, slamming his entire body into a brick wall because he's basically invincible. Now separated from Chloe for the time being, he...
Whoa, hey, don't shoot.
Hey! Nate?
Oh my god, it just doesn't stop. The next coincidence, and coincidence 2 among coincidences, is that Elena just so happens to be investigating Lazarevich with this guy, Jeff, the most plain-bred guy in this game, so you know his fate already. Again, how long did Nate wait until getting to Nepal? How is Elena able to figure out he was even here? Nate denies involvement in the situation, and Chloe uses that fictional character perfect timing power again to reveal that they are, in fact, involved in the situation. Chloe deduces that Elena broke Nate's heart because they really need to hammer home that he's not the Indiana Jones James Bond type, and Nate says they're going with them. Elena argues, but they're interrupted by a gunfight because what else did you expect? This game is 95% gunfights and coincidences. Speaking of percentages, their journey to the temple is about 98% gunfights and 2% platforming.
We should be safe in here.
Wait, what? Repeat that.
We should be safe in here.
You see, that's what I thought you said. Now play what Chloe said earlier.
The one in the middle of all the gunfire and explosions.
Do I even need to say anything? Elena raises questions about why Lazarevich even wants the Chintamani stone after Nate explains what he's after, but Chloe pulls him away before he can think about it. Elena and Jeff stay back while Nate and Chloe explore the temple, home to a statue that looks like that one Starship album. The clue to this puzzle is in Nathan Drake's own journal, which is something I actually really like. It does a great job of showing Nate's personality without any dialogue or action. I also like that he keeps the names of all of the women he's loved as opposed to moving on and forgetting them. And including a photo of Elena is a great way to show that she means more to him than the rest. Solving the statue puzzle opens up a hidden passageway that leads to an impossibly large chamber. You're telling me no one accidentally stumbled across this in the centuries of development? It's a giant ass chamber in the middle of a city! Despite the logistics, I actually really enjoyed this area. It's very creative, visually stunning, and fun to explore. Nate solves an enlightening puzzle and probably fulfills someone's vor fantasy by climbing down this statue's throat to access the next area. Using the dagger activates some Kryptonian technology that reveals the entrance to Shambhala is somewhere in the Himalayas, just as Lazarevich's guys start raiding the place. You know, the place right around where they set up camp. I actually don't mind this extended gunfight that much, especially compared to the other ones. Each room has a completely different layout that requires a different approach. It still drags on, but at least it's not waves and waves of the same repetitive area. Nate and Chloe eventually find Elena and a wounded Jeff. Despite Chloe's protests, Nate picks Jeff up and carries him onward. And this gunfight isn't actually that bad either, as it's more about pressing forward with Jeff than actually fighting. They take a break inside a building where they once again debate taking Jeff, but they're interrupted when Harry and his men show up. Chloe once again making it look like she's on their side. But that's not all. Lazarevich finally shows up and decides to settle the debate.
You carry him all the way from the temple. Shame.
Lazarevich takes the Purba and the map that shows Shambhala's general location and leaves. Harry's about to shoot Nate and Elena, but a quick distraction allows them to somehow run away from a bunch of bullets in a straight line. After losing them, Nate finds a rail yard on a map, believing that's where they'll find Chloe after hearing that she was being taken to a train. Elena says she's coming with him, but you know, Nate, that's one train you might not want to catch. Call me psychic, but I don't think you're gonna come out too hot. And wouldn't you know it, he actually does miss the train. Elena shows up in the planned escape car, but Nate improvises and has her drive him up to the train so he can jump aboard. The train section is lengthy and by far the best part of this game and one of the best parts in the series. It's fun to explore, the enemies come in quick bursts instead of a concentrated group, and there's 3 different phases to it. The beginning jungle phase, the middle tunnel phase, and the closing snowy mountain phase. Oh, and did I mention you get to fight a helicopter in a tank? Nate retrieves the Purba and we finally get the in medias resolution to the opening of the game as he is shot by Harry and shoots a convenient pile of propane tanks to separate himself from the rest of the train so the soldiers can't kill him. Now all caught up, Nate readies himself for battle as more soldiers show up to retrieve the dagger. He puts them on ice, then follows in the footsteps of dinosaurs and falls to the Ice Age. Luckily, it was right in front of this man, who takes Nate to his village and heals him up. The man takes him to...
Just when I thought I had nothing left to lose.
What? How? She says she followed the tracks to the wreckage, but that doesn't explain how she found the village. Elena takes Nate to meet Carl Schaefer, a German who was also healed in this village and just never left. They exchange information we already know, like the Purba being the key to Shambhala and Lazarevich being after the Chintamani stone, but Nate has a crisis of confidence and wants to go home. He is persuaded when he learns how powerful Lazarevich will be if the stone is real and he gets a hold of it. Carl then tasks the Tibetan man who saved him, Tenzin, to take Nate to the wreckage of Carl's voyage when he went looking for the Chintamani stone with a group of people. Their mountaineering journey, and yet another impressive set piece, includes my favorite line in the entire game.
Yeah, good luck, pal. I mean, that's almost impossible to... Oh, you did it. Nice.
Their voyage includes a lot of ice, some wolves, some dead wolves, and a... Oh, hello! Nate and Tenzin double-team the weird horned skull gorilla guy and enter, say it with me, an impossibly large chamber. At least this one's deep within a mountain, so it's a bit more believable that no one's found it. It's not as fun as the previous one, though it is a lot more intricate. It brings them to the final resting place of the other men on Carl's excursion, who are members of the Ahnenerbe, a Nazi think tank. Carl killed them to protect the world from the stone. Nate also finds more of that blue resin inside a box with a carving of the Chintamani stone because why make plot twist hints subtle? Their escape is slowed by more weird minotaur creatures, and they emerge from the cave to see the town on fire. When they return, Elena tells them that Lazarevich arrived and took Carl. The days of fun and unique gunfights are gone, as this one is about 5 hours long, as Nate goes through the entire fucking town and even fights a tank. So let me get this straight. When Lazarevich wants to find and kill the man who is always multiple steps ahead of him, he sends a couple of dudes. But when he wants to raid a random village full of peaceful and defenseless people, he sends no less than 100 men and a fucking tank! No wonder he hasn't made any discoveries before Nate arrived. He's an idiot! Having to hide from the tank and carefully navigate the town to find a way to destroy it would have been fun if it wasn't for the insane amount of enemies coming from every possible direction at all times. After clearing that bullshit, Nate and Elena climb into a truck to chase after the fleet that took Carl. This leads to Nate hopping between trucks to destroy the fleet because every action series is required by law to have a scene where the protagonist fights on top of moving vehicles or else face the death penalty. It's all in vain though, as they don't stop Carl from being taken to Lazarevich at the monastery, because this game tells the same exact story as the first one with all the same puzzle pieces. They just threw in some extra pieces to distract from it. Nate and Elena blast their way through the monastery in Lazarevich's forces because what else would you expect, including yet another instance of Nathan Drake's definition of sneaking quietly being shooting loud guns at everyone I see. Need another example of this game just repeating everything that happened in the first one? Alright, how about an abridged one? And now the gunfighting resumes, and it continues until they find a wounded Carl. I know I breezed through all of that, but from when they enter the monastery to when they find Carl is about 40 minutes of nothing but gunfighting. And that's not taking into account deaths either. Speaking of death, it's Carl's turn. Nate decides to honor his dying wish and destroy the Chintamani stone before Lazarevich gets it, and Elena decides to split up so she can check out the secret entrance, despite the fact that the location is unknown because it's a secret. This time, I just think she's almost as tired of the gunfights as I am. Nate climbs up the tower Lazarevich went into just in time to hear that the key to finding Shambhala is in that room, see Chloe get possession of the Purba, and be left alone. Nate finds the hiding place of the secret entrance, and Lazarevich's men are right on top of it without knowing it's there again. That's 3 times now! They clear out the guards and use the dagger to activate yet another thing, this one revealing the entrance to Shambhala. Man, it's a good thing those weak-ass brick walls holding up the stairs never got damaged in any way, or this would have been exposed centuries ago. This doesn't please the demon yetis though, as they run to the monastery and slaughter anyone they see. Down the exposed pathway, they're about to discover the next step when Lazarevich arrives because he hasn't made a single millimeter of progress without Nate doing all the work first, and he actually gets to be an effective villain. Why do these villains wait until the ending stretch to these games to start being good? Nate is forced to open the pathway, then has to work with Harry to find a way across the newly opened chasm. They eventually open the pathway, but are attacked by another horde of incredibly tough to kill Satan squatches. They're saved by Lazarevich, who kills each one with one shot like a cheater, and reveals that they've just been people in costumes guarding Shambhala from trespassers, and doing very well. They finally enter Shambhala and are immediately attacked by some Mortal Kombat looking MFs. While the 3 of our protagonists argue about useless crap, allow me to raise a very valid question. How the fuck Did nobody find this? The whole city is exposed to open air. You can just fly a helicopter over the mountains until you found it. And you're telling me they had to go through all that bullshit in Istanbul, Borneo, and Nepal? I'll just throw it onto the massive pile of shit in this game that makes no sense and move on. They fight their way through the annoying bullet sponges that are the guardians of Shambhala, all the way to the supposed Chintamani stone. But Nate realizes the stone was never sapphire, but amber, and that the guardians and the bodies they found in Borneo drank the sap from the Tree of Life and were changed somehow, which is exactly what Lazarevich plans on doing. Harry appears from the shadow and lets out a suicide bomb, injuring Elena. Nate tasks Chloe with getting her and Elena out of there while he stops Lazarevich, and we finally get to the final fight. It's an improvement from Navarro, but not by much. Nate has to constantly run away from Super Lazarevich and lure him near blobs of resin, then shoot them so they explode, because apparently he's invincible to everything but exploding goo. Eventually, Nate has Lazarevich beat and leaves him to be killed by the Guardians, escaping from Shambhala after it collapses. Back at the village from earlier, Chloe tells Nate to tell Elena that he loves her and walks away, just in time for Elena and Sully, hey, remember that he was in this game, to emerge. Sully walks off to leave the two of them alone to have one conversation that has more chemistry than every conversation Nate and Chloe had combined.
So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scared were you that I was gonna die?
4.
4?
Yeah, why?
A 4.
Yeah.
You were at least an 8.
An 8?
You were a total 8.
An 8? Those guardian things were an 8.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, those were terrifying.
What's a 10?
Clowns?
Clowns over my death?
I hate
Clowns?
clowns. I hate clowns.
Oh my word. You thought I was dead.
No.
No, you thought I was gone.
No,
Yes,
no.
you did.
No, I
saw
had you all
you shed
along.
tears. You shed a bunch of them.
Tears? It was raining.
No, it was not.
You were unconscious and it was
It
raining.
was totally sunny out and you were bawling.
It wasn't sunny. You were unconscious.
Whatever. I kept your tears in a jar. I have proof.
I'll give you 5. How's that?
How is this everyone's favorite Uncharted game? I genuinely don't understand it. The entire game is coincidences, repeated story beats, and nonsensical decisions. Yeah, some of the set pieces are cool, and they innovate on the gunfights just enough to make them borderline bearable, but that a game of the year does not make. The game makes Nathan Drake look like the world's luckiest idiot who manages to stumble his way onto clues thanks to the bare minimum of skill. They dumb him down so much and have him bounce between drooling over Chloe and pining for Elena so much that he feels like more of a stereotype because all of the dimension to his character is hidden in journal pages you may not even see. Yes, this game has good moments, especially the train section, but the narrative is so weak and repetitive that they don't feel as epic as they should have. All of the cast members continue to be great, and I genuinely don't think this game would have worked nearly as well in the eyes of others without Nolan North's charismatic performance as Nathan Drake. I cannot give this game anything higher than a 5 out of 10. I can tolerate lacking gameplay in favor of a strong story. I cannot tolerate a lacking story in favor of average gameplay. The platforming is great as always, but the investment just isn't there. Now let's look toward Mecca and pray that next week things take a turn for the better. I don't want to be deceived again. I hope to see you there.